We get buried in benchwork in today's video. Okay. How's it going? It's been a while. It's been a few months since I showed off my layout to you guys. Last time I was just starting the benchwork, and as you can see now, benchwork is complete. It's about 99% complete, minus backdrops and front fascia. We'll get into why that is here in a second. But I wanted to have a significant update for you, and so I just kind of pushed through and I got all the benchwork done, and then I was just motivated to keep going, so I didn't want to stop to put together a video and edit it all together and everything, so I just kept working. As you can see, I've got track laid down, I've got wiring running, and I'm plugging away. So this week's video will be about the benchwork itself. We'll do videos on track work and wiring later, but let's go ahead and get started and see just where I am. We'll start off the tour of the layout today talking about, well, where we left off last time, which is the interchange yard at Sandpoint. This is the simplest of the benchwork that went in. It is about 18 inches wide, open grid. I've laid plywood on top in the areas where track is going to go. Pretty straightforward. Every 32 inches, got these guys sticking out of the wall to support it. These are metal brackets that I got from Menards, which is a, I don't know if Menards is a nationwide chain or not, but we have them here. About $4 a piece for one of these. And this is the majority of how this is secured and held in place. Works really great overall. I can't move this benchwork at all, basically anywhere in this room. It is extremely solid, and really, so that's great. I hate benchwork where you kind of lean against it and kind of feel it move underneath you. But this solid in the walls. This isn't going anywhere. Really, pretty happy with how this turned out overall. At the far end of the yard here, we have basically the power station for the layout, the heart of the layout. This is where all the electronics run to. I don't have a whole lot here, but this board here will eventually have electronic circuit breakers for all my blocks. I'm going to have 3 separate blocks, as well as the Wi-Fi station for the proto throttle, when I eventually get a proto throttle, which will probably be this fall. I've got a little shelf up here. This is where my power supply sits, so it's kind of away from the electronics a little bit. Hopefully it gets enough cooling there. And the good thing about this panel is it's down like this, so I can work on it. I can run wires and work on any electricals that I may have to access here like this. And then when I'm ready, oh, they're right. I'm not editing that out. There we go. It secures so well. It actually does secure very, very well. I have these little hooks with these little catches on here, so it gets up in there really well, and if we do it right, nice and secure, hidden above the where the fascia is going to go. You know, it's not something I have to access all the time, but it is there if I need to pull that down and work on the electronics. And then when I don't, it's up there, it's nice and secure, it's not going anywhere. Power strip here with a little switch there to turn the power on and off. So that works well like that, and yeah, let's move on. I am at the second of my two swing gates. This one is a little bit different than the other one. The other one is kind of meant to be lightweight, open and close often. Also serves as a duck under. So it's kind of skinnier, shorter, that kind of thing. This one has to support scenery, and I need to be able to put, I've got an industry that goes here. This is going to be Riley Creek lumber. So I've got a place to spot cars, I've got a turnout. There's kind of a lot that this has to support. So I couldn't really make it any smaller than what it is. And what it is it's pretty big, it's pretty heavy. Which meant I needed legs. I needed to put legs, and I've got casters on the bottom of those legs so that I can open this up. And it swings open just like that, and then I can get to the other room. This door won't be used very often, so this swing gate didn't need to be something that was designed in such a way that it would be used quite often. But it does need, you do need to be able to get in and out of this room. So I do need to be able to have a swing gate here that opens, and so that's why I designed it that way. It works out pretty well. Back end of it looks very, very similar to the front end, the swing gate that we took a look at last time. So that works really well. It's just so heavy that I need the legs to support it. The legs work really well. Mother-in-law. Let's close up the swing gate. You can see the thing close and lock in place. Just like that. Super simple. Really happy with how this turned out. It's big, it's heavy, but it's solid, and it seems like it's going to work out well for my needs. Alrighty, so here we are in the real scenic portion of the layout. There's going to be a rock cut here, a river here, a couple of bridges, some nice scenery, a road crossing over here. It all leads into a tunnel over on this side. And this was the last part of the layout that went in, and it was a little tricky because between kind of this spot over here above my desk and the interchange yards, which led into the swing gate, there was about a 1-inch difference in height. And I tried my best to avoid it happening, but somehow between that side of the room and this side of the room over here, we got off by 1 inch. So that meant that the tracks had to go uphill about 1 inch. And so this length from here over to about here, it's about a 1.5% grade. Wasn't super happy about that happening, but you're not parking cars anywhere in this area. So I don't need to worry about like having cars kind of run away downhill when I'm trying to hold them in place. That's not something that is going to be an issue for me. So it's really good. I have to check to see if there's any elevation change on the prototype. We may be going uphill at this point anyway, so if that's the case, great. Just adds a little prototypical operation to the layout. If not, it's it's not terrible. I'm not too upset about it. Yeah, so a little tricky going in, but I'm really excited. This is the part of the layout that I think is going to be like the signature scene for the railroad. Seeing these two bridges here over a nice river scene, lots of trees and rocky cuts around them and stuff. I think this is going to be a really awesome scene on the layout. So something to keep an eye on as I develop this in the years to come. So what we have here is my workbench and the tracks that go around it. I was kind of expecting that I would have to put in legs in this area to support kind of this large gap between walls, but it turns out that wasn't the case. I was able to find brackets large enough to support it, and it's pretty solid in here. There's no sag, so I'm really happy with how this turned out. Installed a nice little work light for myself here, so I got plenty of light on the workbench to do all my modeling. So that's going to work out really great there. We can see back here we got these kind of like large supports. These are where the backdrop are going to go. I'm going to have a removable backdrop section here so that I can access these turnouts should I need to perform any maintenance tasks on them, hopefully. Cross fingers, that doesn't happen very often. But the Union Pacific main line goes behind the backdrop and through here and into the closet. So there'll be 3 staging tracks that can hold full-size trains back behind here. And then in front of this backdrop here, I'm going to have a nice tunnel scene, some real nice scenery in this section here. This is where the Medellin Falls main line continues on to Usk, Washington, and the main switching portion of the layout. And here we are in Usk, Washington. This is that's sort of the main switching area of the layout. Trains that are built in Sandpoint come around and end up here. Let's see. As far as benchwork goes, same technique as the rest of the layout. You can really start to see where I've got these supports here, which are going to hold the backdrop up. In front of my staging tracks, you can see the holes that I've cut into the wall so that I can access those staging tracks from the back should I need to. Should cars become derailed or track work needs to get worked on, that kind of thing. This also really shows off the cookie cutter method of building a sub-road bed where you're only sort of building out plywood pieces for the areas where you're going to put track. The rest of this will be covered in plaster cloth, so I've got plenty of space to play with hills and valleys and that kind of thing in here. This whole section here stands 33 inches off of the wall, and it's all supported by angled brackets that I built for myself out of wood. I couldn't find metal ones that were big enough, and certainly not big enough and what I felt was strong enough to do the job that I needed it to do here. So I built my own out of wood, and again, it doesn't move at all. It is stiff, so that is great. I'm really happy with how this turned out. This will be probably one of the last sections that I get the track work put into, just because of the way that I'm sort of building track work out. I want to get the Union Pacific, I want to get all the staging yards in here. I want to make sure that those are running really well. And before I even put on the backdrop, which is why the backdrop isn't up right now, I want to get all the staging track laid, and I want to run it for a few months to make sure that it is just problem free. I don't want to have to pull the backdrop back off of it again to fix issues with track work, so that kind of thing. So this will stay kind of unfinished for a little while, just until I'm happy that everything that's happening back here is working great, and then we'll put the backdrop on. We'll finish up all the track work that goes in front of here, and And yeah, so I think it'd be pretty good. We are underneath the benchwork now. I've got some scrap pieces leaning up against the wall here, just kind of get them out of the way. But you can see what I've done with my wall supports. I wanted to keep as much of this layout suspended above the ground as possible. I didn't want legs. I'd like the look of suspended layout better. So I built these brackets myself. I may go back and do a little more reinforcement, some webbing in between here, just to give it a little more support for when I put, the backdrop and all the plaster and stuff on top of it, and it really starts to kind of become a little more heavy. But they seem to do pretty good for themselves, and once I paint them the same color as the walls, they should blend right in. One section where I had to use legs, I couldn't get away with not using legs, was back in here. This section right along here and along over that direction is concrete wall, and my options here are pretty limited. It was either try to box in the room, and we've already talked about why I didn't want to end up doing that, or build legs. I didn't want to drill into the wall. You can drill into concrete for sure, and then build some brackets out that way, but every time you put a hole in concrete, you give yourself an opportunity. You give water an opportunity to come in, and I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to risk that at all. This basement already used to have water issues. Previous owners put a channel around the entire basement to help sort of channel water out of here. So they did a lot of work to keep this basement dry, and I'm not going to screw that up by drilling into the concrete. So not going to do that. Instead, I put these pretty big, pretty solid, heavy-duty legs in here. And again, I'm going to paint those the same gray color as the wall. They'll blend right in. Nobody's going to notice or care. They're all going to be focused on the railroad and not what's going on underneath. And that brings us back to here. This is where everything started. We started with the swing gate last time. As you can see, it still works great. Now I've got benchwork associated with this area as well. Got a little platform right out here. This is where the swing gate rests when it's in its open position, which is where the swing gate spends most of its time. I'll leave it open when I'm not running trains, close it up when I am. Back in here this is the end of USK. We have the lead track, which kind of I use to do all my switching this direction. And then over here, I'm going to have a bridge scene. Narrow bit of benchwork here that's going to actually contain this scene, because behind it is same thing as what we saw on the other side. We saw the single track split off into 3 staging tracks. We're getting it on this side as well here. So the 3 staging tracks are converging back to 1 track so that it can run on to the swing gate and back over to Sandpoint, so that it completes the circle. I can run trains in circles all day. This bridge here does the same thing and goes across the swing gate to the yard at Sandpoint, so I can run 2 trains in circles all day. So this layout gives me plenty of operational opportunity, as well as plenty of chances just to kind of run trains and chill out with a beer and enjoy that aspect of the hobby. So pretty straightforward. This section is lowered down about 10 inches so I can get a really nice deep river scene. This will be a really nice kind of scenic element, a signature scene for the layout. I went ahead and stained and sealed this piece of wood right here because this is probably going to be one of the last structures I build for the layout, simply because it's got to be basically a scratch-built bridge. I'm building from several different microengineering bridge kits. And some scraps, some styrene and all that other kind of stuff. So it's going to be a pretty complex model. I want to get really good at building models before I attempt this. So because this is just going to be bare plywood for a little while, I went ahead and sealed this up so that I don't have issues with warping later on. And just to make it look a little bit nicer so that as I have trains running across it, it looks a little better. So I think that's it. That's the end of the tour for today. As you can see, I got a lot done, but I'm very excited about where I am right now with the layout. I'm excited to be laying track and getting on to next steps. So what are next steps? Track work is the big next step. I am taking my time. I'm going easy on that. I want to make sure I do it right. So track work is coming along nicely. It's coming along a little slowly as well, but slow and steady wins the race, right? The track work I'm going to super detail. I'm going to add joint bars. I'm going to add details to turnouts. I'm going to take an X-Acto knife and beat up rails to show old rails. So all the kinds of like really nice little super detailed elements. I'm going to paint ties. Some ties are going to get painted individually. It's going to end up looking really good when it's done, but it's going to take a little bit of time. So I've got that on my plate. Of course, finishing out the wiring, I've got all that on my plate as well. I got to figure out how to do, these turnouts. I got to figure out how to wire those up to DCC so that I can control them via my controller. I'm eventually going to put in panels to control by push button. That's going to be a project I think for next year. We'll put that one off for a little while. The next big thing though, beyond the track work, is ceiling and lights. I need to paint the ceiling, but before I do that, I need to address the lighting in this room because the lighting is awful. I've got supplemental studio lighting going on right now so that I can get a little more light into the room, but that's not going to work once I get to actually modeling. I need to do something about that. I don't know what to do. I'm thinking LED fluorescence, but I'd really like to do a 24-hour day-night cycle on the layout. I'm thinking I can do that with LEDs, but I don't think I can do it with fluorescent LEDs, the tube-style LEDs. It's a whole thing. If you have suggestions on lighting, let me know. Otherwise, I'm just going to be doing a lot of research while I'm laying track and super detailing it and spending my time doing that. But at least I've got trains running now, which is super exciting. So follow me on Instagram. I'm going to be posting quite often updates. If you've been following me there all along, you've been seeing them as I go along. I'm going to run trains more often, so you'll see some of that as I get to it. And sorry this took so long to get this video out, but hey, thanks for sticking in there and checking out this video. And I will see you all next time.